Her best friend openly disrespected me and my wife defended her, saying, "That's just how she is." I said, "I understand." The next day, I accidentally revealed a secret to the friend's fiancé. Now, Miss How She Is single. I, 34 male, have been married to my wife Cassandra, 32, for 6 years. Overall, we have a good marriage. We communicate well, share household duties, have similar life goals. But there's been one persistent thorn in our relationship. Her best friend Mallory, 33. Mallory and Cassandra have been friends since college. And from day one of meeting me, Mallory made it clear she thought Cassandra could do better. Not in subtle ways either. She'd make comments at dinner parties about how Cassandra settled, how she gave up her wild side for domestic life, how she used to date more exciting guys. At first, I brushed it off. Some friends are protective, whatever, but it escalated over the years. She'd joke about my salary. I'm a project manager at a mid-sized company, decent money but not Wall Street. My hobbies, apparently board game nights, are pathetic. Even my appearance. At least he's tall, that's something. Every time I brought it up to Cassandra, same response. That's just how Mallory is. She doesn't mean anything by it. She's actually really sweet when you get to know her. Sweet? The woman who told me at our wedding reception that she gave it 2 years, tops? The one who tried to convince Cassandra to go on a girls' trip to Vegas for our anniversary weekend? Who constantly brings up Cassandra's ex, Bryce, the investment banker who apparently was God's gift to women. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago at Mallory's engagement party. Yeah, she managed to find someone willing to marry her. Garrett, 35M, a genuinely nice guy who owns a small tech consulting firm. I actually felt bad for him. During the party, Mallory had too much champagne and decided to give a speech. Most of it was about her and Garrett. But then she launched into this whole thing about settling for safety versus chasing passion. She looked directly at Cassandra and said, "Some of us choose security and predictability." Glanced at me, "And some of us wait for the real deal." She raised her glass to Garrett, who looked uncomfortable. Later, I overheard her telling a group of her friends, with Cassandra right there. I mean, at least Cass's husband is stable. That's important for some people. Not everyone needs excitement and ambition. Some people are fine with missionary position and Netflix documentaries. Cassandra laughed. Actually laughed. Like it was hilarious that her best friend was basically calling me boring in bed and in life. I pulled Cassandra aside later and told her that was completely out of line. Her response? "Oh honey, that's just how Mallory is. She's had a lot to drink." She didn't mean it personally. I said, "She literally made it personal. She was talking about our sex life." She was joking. "You're too sensitive. You know she's getting married now. She's just excited and saying silly things." I looked at my wife, the woman I loved, defending someone who had spent 6 years subtly, and not so subtly, undermining our relationship. And I said the only thing I could. "I understand." Cassandra smiled, kissed my cheek, and went back to the party. I stood there, watching Mallory hang all over Garrett, and noticed something interesting. When she thought no one was looking, she was texting someone with a huge smile on her face. Not unusual, except Garrett was literally right next to her. And when he tried to see what she was smiling about, she quickly put her phone away. Now, I'd seen that behavior before, at multiple gatherings over the years. Always the secretive texting, always the quick phone hiding when Garrett came around, always the work stuff excuse. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I was angry, humiliated, and tired of being disrespected in front of my wife. So when Mallory left her phone on the bar to go dance, and I happened to be getting a drink, I didn't unlock it or anything. Didn't need to. The messages were right there on the lock screen. From someone named Derek, "Can't wait for next Tuesday. Same hotel?" 3 messages. That's all I saw before I went back to my table. But it was enough. The next day, Garrett added me on LinkedIn. He'd mentioned wanting to connect about some potential project management work for his company. Perfect timing. I accepted and messaged him. "Hey man, great party yesterday. Would love to discuss those projects. By the way, small world, I think I know Derek from Mallory's office. Tall guy, works in accounting? He mentioned they're working on some big Tuesday deadline. Anyway, let me know when you're free to chat about the consulting work." Innocent enough, just making conversation. Networking. Garrett responded within an hour. Thanks. Yeah, let's definitely connect. Weird though, Mallory's company doesn't have a Derek in accounting. You sure about the name? Pretty sure, I replied. Maybe he's in a different department? I definitely saw his name pop up in relation to some Tuesday thing. My mistake probably. Anyway, how's Thursday for coffee? That was 5 days ago. From what I understand through the inevitable gossip network, Garrett started asking questions. Turns out Derek is Mallory's personal trainer. The Tuesday work meetings she'd been having for the past 8 months? Yeah. Mallory tried damage control, claimed Derek was just a friend, that Garrett was being paranoid. But Garrett's not an idiot. He checked their credit card statements. They'd recently opened a joint account for wedding expenses. Multiple charges at a hotel restaurant every other Tuesday. Always for 2 people. Always during her supposed work meetings. The engagement is off. Mallory is staying with her parents. And suddenly, mysteriously, my wife's best friend is too busy to hang out or return calls. Cassandra has been quiet. She hasn't directly confronted me, but I think she knows. The timing is too convenient. The Derek detail too specific. Am I the bad guy here? Maybe. But after 6 years of being called boring, mediocre, and basically told I'm not good enough for my wife, I'm having trouble feeling guilty. Mallory wanted to talk about settling? Well, now she doesn't have to worry about it. Update 1. Well, things have escalated in ways I didn't expect. Buckle up because the entitlement is off the charts. First, Cassandra finally confronted me 3 days after my original post. She came home from work, sat me down, and asked point blank, "Did you tell Garrett about Derek?" I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I mentioned I thought I knew a Derek from Mallory's work when Garrett and I were connecting about business. That's all." Technically true. She stared at me for a long moment, then said, "Mallory thinks you saw something on her phone at the party. Did she have something on her phone she shouldn't have?" That's not the point. Then what is the point, Cass? And here's where it got interesting. My wife, the woman who defended every insult, every dig, every undermining comment with, "That's just how she is," suddenly had tears in her eyes. The point is, you destroyed her life. Her wedding is off. She's living with her parents. Garrett won't even speak to her. I stayed calm. I mentioned a name in a networking message. If that destroyed her life, maybe there were bigger issues. You know what you did, and you know what she did, to me, to us, for 6 years. That stopped her cold. She opened her mouth, closed it, then just went to our bedroom and slammed the door. But the real drama started 2 days later. I came home from work to find Mallory in my living room, in my house, sitting on my couch. Cassandra had let her in. The entitlement was immediate. No hello, no can we talk, just straight to, "You need to fix this." Fix what? Don't play dumb. You sabotaged my relationship. You need to call Garrett and tell him you lied. I didn't lie. You implied things. You made him suspicious. I sat down across from her, really looking at her for the first time without my wife's filter. Mallory looked rough. Hair unwashed, no makeup, wearing what looked like week-old athleisure. The woman who used to mock my mediocre lifestyle was having a rough time. Mallory, I mentioned a name? That's all. What Garrett found was already there. Her face went red. I wasn't doing anything wrong. Derek and I were just friends. Friends who meet at hotels every other Tuesday? You don't understand. Garrett was always working, always busy with his company. Derek paid attention to me. So you cheated. It wasn't cheating. It was emotional support. Cassandra, who'd been silent in the corner, finally spoke up. "Mal, you told me you were sleeping with him." The look Mallory gave my wife could have curdled milk. "That was private. Girl talk. You weren't supposed to." "I wasn't supposed to what?" Cassandra's voice was sharp. "Care that you were cheating on your fiancé? The same fiancé you convinced me was perfect for you." And then Mallory said something that I think finally opened Cassandra's eyes. "Oh please, like you haven't thought about it. At least I had the guts to go after what I wanted instead of settling for safe and boring." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my wife's face cycle through about 10 emotions before landing on something I'd never seen directed at Mallory. Disgust. "Get out," Cassandra said quietly. "Cass, I didn't mean, get out." Mallory looked between us, seemed to realize she'd crossed a line, and started gathering her things. But because she's Mallory, she couldn't leave without a parting shot. Fine. Enjoy your boring little life with your boring little husband. When you wake up at 40 and realize you wasted your youth on mediocrity, don't come crying to me. The door slammed. Cassandra and I sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, she said, "I'm sorry." For what? For everything. For letting her talk to you like that. For defending her. For being blind to what she was. I wanted to be petty, to say, "I told you so." But looking at my wife, who just lost her best friend of over a decade, I couldn't. "She showed you what she wanted you to see," I said instead. Cassandra laughed bitterly. "She showed me exactly who she was. I just didn't want to look." We talked for hours that night. Really talked. About how Mallory's comments had affected me, how they'd affected us. About how Cassandra had enabled it because it was easier than confronting her friend. About how we move forward. I thought that was the end of it. Mallory was out of our lives. Cassandra and I were working on us. Done deal. I was wrong. 3 days later, I got a call from my boss. Someone had called the company claiming I was involved in cyber harassment and digital stalking. They'd made serious accusations about me hacking into personal devices and destroying someone's relationship. Fortunately, my boss knows me well. We've worked together for 5 years. He told me about the complaint and asked for my side. I explained the situation minus some details, and he said he'd handle it. The accusation was vague, no proof was offered, and the caller had refused to give their name. But I knew who it was, and I knew this wasn't over. That night, Garrett called me. First time we'd spoken since the LinkedIn messages. "Hey man," he said, sounding tired. "I wanted to thank you." For what? For having the balls to hint at what was going on. I know that couldn't have been easy, given the relationships involved. I chose my words carefully. I honestly was just trying to network, but I'm sorry about how everything turned out. He laughed, but it wasn't happy. "Don't be. You saved me from marrying someone who was cheating before we even got married. Can you imagine if I'd found out after? With kids involved? Messy divorce?" We chatted a bit more. He told me Mallory had been blowing up his phone, alternating between begging for forgiveness and threatening to ruin him if he didn't take her back. She'd shown up at his office, made a scene. His business partner had to threaten to call security. "The thing is," Garrett said, "I really thought I knew her, but the person I'm seeing now, this vindictive, entitled person, maybe this is who she always was." I thought about all the comments, all the digs, all the jokes at my expense. Yeah, maybe it is. After we hung up, I found Cassandra in the kitchen, stress baking, her coping mechanism. I told her about the call to my work, about Garrett. She put down her mixing bowl and leaned against the counter. She called me today too, 27 times, left voicemails calling me every name in the book, said I chose that bastard over our friendship, that I'd regret this when you inevitably bore me to death and I'm left with no friends. 27 times? That's harassment. Yeah, I saved the voicemails. We looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. This was escalating beyond petty revenge or hurt feelings. This was becoming something else. "Maybe we should talk to a lawyer," I suggested. Cassandra nodded. "I'll call tomorrow. My cousin knows someone who handles harassment cases." As I write this update, Mallory has started a smear campaign on social media. Nothing that mentions us directly. She's not that stupid, but lots of posts about fake friends and homewreckers and karma coming for those who destroy others' happiness. The woman who spent 6 years telling me I wasn't good enough, who cheated on her fiancé, who tried to get me in trouble at work. She's painting herself as the victim. But here's the thing. Her mask is off now. Garrett sees her for who she is. Cassandra sees her for who she is. And everyone in her social circle is starting to notice that her story doesn't quite add up. Actions meet consequences. And Mallory? She's finding out that that's just how she isn't an excuse anymore. Final update. This will be my last update because, frankly, I'm ready to put this whole chapter behind us. But given how invested some of you were, I figured I'd share how it all shook out. The escalation continued for about a week after my last update. Mallory went full nuclear. Beyond the social media posts and harassment calls, she created a fake LinkedIn profile to message my company's clients, claiming I was unstable and untrustworthy. Sent Cassandra's boss an anonymous email suggesting she check Cassandra's work computer for inappropriate activity. Posted in several local Facebook groups that we were dangerous neighbors who spy on people. Left a 1-star review for Garrett's business, claiming he was a paranoid control freak who accuses innocent women of cheating. That last one was her biggest mistake. Garrett had been willing to just walk away, but attacking his business? That crossed a line. He filed a defamation suit. His lawyer subpoenaed her phone records as part of building the case. And that's when everything unraveled for Mallory. See Derek, the personal trainer? He wasn't her only special friend. Turns out our girl had a whole roster. A bartender named Travis she met during girls' nights. A guy from her gym named Paul. Her ex from college who lived 2 towns over. The phone records showed it all. The coordinated meetups, the hotel bookings, the works. Girl wasn't just cheating, she was running a whole operation. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember how she was always making digs about money? About my mediocre salary and lifestyle? Turns out Mallory was in massive debt. Like, scary massive. She'd been living this whole Instagram lifestyle. Designer bags, expensive dinners, weekend trips, all on credit cards. Nearly $60 in the hole. Garrett found out when they were planning the wedding and she kept dodging questions about her financial contributions. Her plan? Marry Garrett. Let him pay off her debt. Keep living the high life. The affairs were her backup plans. Guys she kept on the hook in case things with Garrett went south. When all this came out through the legal proceedings, it spread through our social circle like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone had a story about money Mallory had borrowed and never paid back. About times she'd stuck them with the bill. About how she always seemed to have expensive things, but never picked up a check. The woman who spent years calling me boring and mediocre? She was a broke cheater, desperately trying to land a meal ticket while keeping her side pieces warm. Cassandra took it hard. Not because she missed Mallory, but because she felt stupid for not seeing it. We actually started couples counseling to work through it. Best decision we've made. Our therapist helped Cassandra understand how toxic friendships can be just as damaging as toxic romantic relationships, and how Mallory had essentially been emotionally abusing both of us for years. As for Mallory's harassment campaign against us, our lawyer sent a cease and desist. When she violated it by showing up at Cassandra's work, we got a restraining order. She tried to contest it, but the judge took one look at the evidence, the calls, texts, fake profiles, reviews, and granted it immediately. The last I heard through the grapevine, she had to move back in with her parents permanently. She's working at her dad's accounting firm. The irony of her having to take a boring job isn't lost on me. Derek, Travis, Paul, and the ex all dropped her when they found out about each other. She's been banned from 2 of her favorite restaurants for trying to dine and dash. Garrett's defamation suit is moving forward, and his lawyer thinks they have a strong case. Cassandra and I were better than ever. Counseling helped us address not just the Mallory situation, but other communication issues we'd been ignoring. We've made new friends as a couple, people who actually like both of us. I got promoted at work. Turns out when you're not constantly stressed about being insulted in your own home, you perform better. We're even planning a vacation. Just us. No toxic third wheels. Last week, we were at a local coffee shop when we saw Mallory. She was sitting alone, laptop open, looking stressed. She saw us too. For a moment our eyes met and I saw something flicker across her face. Regret? Anger? Who knows? Cassandra grabbed my hand and we walked past without a word. Because that's the thing about people who justify their terrible behavior with "that's just how I am." Eventually, everyone realizes that's exactly why they should stay away. Mallory wanted to talk about settling, about mediocrity, about boring lives. Well, now she's living with her parents at 33, working a job she hates, buried in debt, with multiple burned bridges and a potential lawsuit hanging over her head. Meanwhile, the boring couple she mocked? We're thriving. Funny how that worked out. To everyone dealing with their own Mallory, whether it's a toxic friend, family member, or partner, remember this: that's just how they are is never an excuse for disrespect. You deserve better. And sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate. Sometimes it's just letting toxic people face the natural consequences of their actions while you live your boring, mediocre, wonderfully peaceful life without them. I'm done with this chapter. Time to go plan that vacation with my amazing wife. Thanks for following along. I won't be updating again, but trust me, that's a good thing.